So in this video, I want to talk about ladies of the night. More important than that, I want to talk about the myths, the misconceptions that we have been taught, because I think knowing these truths will lead you down the right path and avoid a lot of the mistakes that I made. And I would always have this debate with a really good friend of mine. His name was Brian. And Brian would always say,
Giovanni, there are good girls at the club.
you're always looking for the girl that will go home with you, or you're just seeing one side of the club. But really, there are good girls who go to the club with their friends once a month, and they are quality girls. And I can tell you, after 10 years of going out in field, coaching, going out myself,
Call the ambulance! Whoa, 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 whoa.
that in the majority of cases, the women that I've met at the club are definitely of a lower quality than women that I meet through my social circle, through salsa dancing, through day game, right? Interacting with them during the day. And another argument Brian used to make is that,
You know, Giovanni, you're just seeing a different side of women at the club that you are denying.
so what he meant was that the good girl that I meet at the grocery store or at the bookstore, when I see her in the club, she's drinking, she's partying, there's a different side to her, and you're ignoring that wild side. You're just assuming that she's this intellectual, girl who's reading books. And the more I think about it, this is one of those things that game teaches us, right? Which is every woman is driven by her emotions. And if you can create an environment where the girl has, a table, she's got status, she's got alcohol. This idea that, if a woman met a celebrity or a rapper, the really good girl just becomes a total hoe because of status. And, based on all my experience, I just think that's not true. There's a really good scene in Sex and the City when Charlotte meets this movie star. And she goes with this guy and she becomes kind of like a groupie. But later in that episode, this guy starts doing some really wild stuff. And Charlotte at some point hits her tipping point. She's like, this is not appropriate. This is not okay. And she gets up and she leaves. And I think that scene is really insightful because I think we give people with status the benefit of the doubt. But if you're someone who understands who you are, if you're someone who's principled, you definitely have a boundary as far as how far you go. And so for that reason, I think that girls, when they're younger, I meet 21-year-old, 23-year-old girls at the club, and they're just having fun. And then just like hooking up with, random guys for no reason. And when you're in this game, coming up, we were taught that, women go on emotions and that it's all about like giving her a good time. But I do think that every once in a while, I do meet a girl who has principles, who knows who she is, she has boundaries, and she doesn't fall into this category. And this whole idea of like, oh, if you're just high status enough, or if you just like stimulate her emotions enough, if you're like Marshmallow and you ask the girl to hook up with you, that they're just gonna turn 180, even if she's like a good girl. And I just don't know if that's true. I think it's more true when they're younger and they're exploring who they are. But as people get older, I think they discover what their principles are and who they are. Another thing that I was really misguided by when I started this journey was that getting the girl, sleeping with the girl is winning, right? I associated winning to proving all my bullies in high school wrong. I associated being able to sleep with a girl to being not a loser, to finally being cool, to moving away from pain, right? And that I think is also a big myth. It's okay to do everything you can to try to sleep with a girl, but there is something to be said about doing everything you can within your principles and still getting a girl, or letting a girl go because she doesn't align with your principles. And I'll tell you the story because I think it's so important to your development. Last night, my friend invited a girl from Hinge out, and this girl brought another girl. They were like, hot girls. And so these girls hung out with us up in the hotel room, and then they came down to the table, and he's with his girl, and you can tell they're getting it on. And her girl, right? This girl was like tall, skinny. She's got tattoos. She's got a Vegas turbo girl, if you will. And she starts like being a little aggressive with me. So when they have a negative energy compliance, they will get off on making you feel bad or comply to something. And here's how I knew for sure. After that incident, about like an hour later, she starts making out with this like older guy who's a little overweight. And I'm like, for most guys, they would feel competitive. They'd be like, wait, this girl was at my table. Now she's making out with another guy like right outside my table. I feel threatened. But then I heard from my friend, the birthday boy, who's hooking up with her friend. He said,
Oh yeah, so-and-so, she told me that she's trying to break you.
she's trying to break you. And she knows that you're going to turn around. And the funny thing is, A younger version of me would have totally been like, I know game. I'm better than that guy. I'm gonna steal her right now and make out with her. Kind of like that scene in The Girl Next Door, right?
Excuse me.
But I'm older now. I know where I stand. And when I saw her making out with the other guy, I was like, kind of like turned off. Because I think when you know what you want and you have a certain level of like class and definitiveness to your direction, it turned me off that she would make out with a guy who was, in my opinion, such a lower value than her and me. And so I ignored that interaction and I just let it go. So this is a pattern of someone who gets guys to comply with her using negative emotions: fear, jealousy, insecurity. And even if you do hook up with her and the sex is good, which usually is with girls like that because they're a little crazy, I have learned that it is not worth it, bro. Okay? Anyway, so at the end of the night, this girl, as I suspected, she leads the guy on. He ends up talking to another girl because he's, trying to get laid. And she, at some point just leaves the club. But here's an important lesson for you. The girls that were best in bed, sometimes they are the girls with that crazy glint in her eye. She does crazy stuff. She drinks a lot. She parties. She dances. She's unpredictable at the club, right? She's got piercings, tattoos, etc.
I'm a wild girl. Watch out, Madonna.
And if you've never been with a girl like that, you're always wondering, like, I wonder what it's like. I'll tell you what, they're usually pretty good in bed. But the best girls that I ever had in bed, and, I have been around the block, thank you God, I'm still healthy and safe, are the girls that you would have no idea she's a freak in bed. My ex-girlfriend was this innocent-looking girl. My previous girlfriend before that went to church every day, good Christian girl, crazy in bed. And they're crazy in a way where they're just like down, like open to anything. And in fact, they're even more crazy than the girls that have all the tattoos and the crazy markings. Like externally, they look crazy, but it's the innocent looking ones that are the most crazy in bed, in my opinion. And here's the thing, if the girl likes you, usually she's down to please you and comply with you and even experiment with you, because you guys are a team. And that is very, very fun and exciting as well. You don't need to go after that crazy chick because here's the thing, those girls come with a lot of baggage. And believe me, there's baggage. And you're like, what baggage, bro? I can tell you, man, like without getting into details, like emotional baggage, making you feel bad, making you do things you don't want to do, emotional blackmail, financial blackmail. These girls are always getting into trouble. They're always some trouble of some kind with the law, financials, drugs. There's always something going on with them because they're addicted to that negative emotion and then that positive emotion, but it goes back and forth. And it always comes with drama, and it's just not worth it. In fact, you can, even if you wanted to have like an amazing sex life, you can literally just, in certain cities, just pick up girls during the day and have just amazing, crazy sex experience without going into the club at all. The other myth I want to talk about that dispel you is this idea of like, do whatever it takes, bro. Do whatever it takes to get laid, right? And when I was younger, there was this like, almost like this cultural positive feedback. And to be fair, we live in an American culture where it's like, get the American dream, bro. Do what it takes, right? Like, do what it takes to feed your family, no matter what, right? And there's a certain truth to that. If you need money, like sometimes you might need to try to sell the guy on a product that is sucks, right? Because you need to feed your family. And then it translates to like dating where it's like, do whatever it takes to get laid, bro. Like there's like the extreme version of that for sure that I've seen other guys do that I have never indulged in, and just, to me, that's crazy, right? They'll lie, they'll cheat, they will like coerce. And then there's like guys who just like, do whatever it takes short of like lying and just like put yourself out there and doesn't matter what your dignity. Here's a very interesting lesson that I learned on my journey that I think will benefit you, is that you're going to feel better about yourself, I think, if you stick to your principles. And if you don't know what your principles are, be open with your mind about learning where your boundaries are and what your principles are. When I started out, I remember I met this guy. His name was Yusuf. And Yusuf was a pretty good looking guy from Sweden. And he was living in San Francisco for a few months. And I became friends with him through like these self-development groups. And one day I was in San Francisco and I had to go back to Mountain View, because I had work the next day. So I said, Yusuf, I gotta go, but these two girls that you just talked to, they're so beautiful, good luck. And then I meet them next weekend. And I'm like, hey, what happened to those two hot European blonde girls, right? And at that time, a European blonde girl as a dorky Asian guy, to me was like, oh my God, like there was two of them with you. Like I couldn't believe it. It was like a kid like at a candy shop, right? It's like I've never seen girls that hot actually talk to us and engage with us. I was such a dork. And then Yusuf said, oh, I ditched him. And I'm like, what? You ditched him? They were the hottest girls I've talked to all month. What do you mean you ditched them? What happened? And Yusuf was like, yeah, they were being annoying. And I was like, annoying? But they were so hot. And then Yusuf turns to me and says, no, dude, you don't understand, bro. He's like, I was like on the way home with them, and then one of them sat down and she started peeing on the BART. BART is the metro system in San Francisco. And then after that, I'm like, nah, screw this. And I just left him there and I went home. And at that time, because I was so young and inexperienced, and I thought the blonde girl was like the holy grail of a game, right? I was like, man, did Yusuf make a mistake? But now, sitting here as, you know, in my 30s, I can tell you definitively that Yusuf was a guy who, even though we were both young, he was a guy who had principle. He knew where his boundaries were. He knew that that wasn't a classy behavior that he tolerated, and he would rather let that go because he trusted that he would acquire the skill set where he would meet another girl just as hot without those behavioral problems, right? And so what I'm trying to impart to you, if you find it valuable, is that it's good to have principles in dating because you'll know where your boundaries are, and negative people or people that may have a different worldview than you can't push you around, right? You're not going to feel like you're compromised or you feel kind of bad the next day because you did something that you didn't really want to do. A lot of dating coaches, a lot of like blogs, even YouTube videos these days, they're telling you like, you know, girls in Miami are in this way. You know, the girls I meet in this area, they all behave like this, right? And it's just not true. You guys saw the recent video of my kissing demos, right? So Sam is a bartender. She's got tattoos. She looks like a Vegas girl, but she hates the club. She goes on hikes. She likes nature. And then I meet, you know, and then there's like my former girlfriend who went to church every day, but she was sexually very adventurous. And I know another doctor who goes to get her residency every day, but in bed, she's crazy. But, you know, when she's at work, she's very professional. People are not these like one-dimensional beings. They have very different personalities in different situations. And sexuality is one of those things that you never really know until you start getting in it with a person. The idea that you have to get this like crazy club girl just to have good sex is simply untrue. As I was sitting there at the table, and I'm looking around Excess, the club, and I'm looking at Marshmallow playing, I realized this part of my journey is over, and I don't feel sad about it at all. You know, I see my friends there, you know, they're not used to having a table. It was his birthday. He's not used to having this much fun. He's been working for the last 7 years really hard. So to them, it was like, I got the table, it's exciting. They have to go through that journey and that experience. And I'm glad that I was part of that. That allure, as I'm looking around, they see like stars and they see the smoke coming out, they see the lights, and all I saw was like the illusion of the artificial performance on the stage, which I still enjoyed. You know, here in Vegas, Marshmallow like headlines like every weekend. He's been headlining every weekend for like 5 months. So the allure goes away. And I was talking to our bottle girl, and she's like, yeah, you know, for her, it's like another day at work, right? When I first started working at Google, you know, the Googleplex, the amazement never really goes away at Google. But after like 3 years, I'm like, you know, my journey here is ending, right? And I think in life, you have to be aware of where you are on your journey, you know, and am I just starting out learning social skills? Am I just looking for my future wife? You know, am I just trying to get as much dating experience as possible so I know what I want? I'm a guy who's never going to get married. I just want to be single. And by respecting where you are on the journey, you can interact with other people that may be on different parts of their journey and still have fun with them. And still be firm with your boundaries, right? Like, hey, I'm down to go out with you, but I'm not going to drink. I'm down to hang out. I'm looking for, for a girlfriend. I'm not going to just hook up with any girl. Or, tonight I'm trying to hook up. I know you guys are just partying, but I might be walking around talking to some girls. I'm just letting you know ahead of time so you don't feel uncomfortable. Let me know if that's an issue for you. I'm happy to go out on my own and you can do your own thing. Or we can coordinate together. So be aware of where you are on your journey. And I think that will help you deal with your friends and have better interactions with people. So my last piece of insight for you is about sex. There's another type of girl who likes going kind of wild. And as I've said, all those girls that I've met in my 10-year dating career, they don't look like they're the type of girls that like that. As a matter of fact, all the girls that look like club girls, actually in bed they were good, but they didn't go that they weren't that wild, right? There's a certain mindset that the girl has that's like she'll do anything in bed, and that mindset, I think it's natural. It's not something that you can learn. Okay, so if you do meet those girls, I would say they're probably about 10 to 20% of the population, depending on what type of people you hang out with, and they usually look very innocent. Then you can get hooked because that sex life is very very exciting, right? Because she's just down for anything, and she will kind of like experiment with you. However, you got to remember, when you're in a relationship, sex is only a problem if the sex isn't good. But when you're in a relationship, how much time do you spend having sex after 3 months? Let's say you're having sex 70% of the time. You just got together, it's a honeymoon. Well, like a year from now, on average, 10 to 20% of your time is going to be spent having sex with your partner. The other 90% of the time, you're interacting with her. Is she someone that you like? Is she someone you enjoy hanging around, after sex or in between, right? It's not the most important thing. And so look for someone who either fits your sex drive and fits your sexual, deviancy, whatever that might be. Someone who is willing to please, someone who is experimental, someone who matches your deviancy and your sex drive, wherever you are. I think those two compatibility points are more important than anything else. I would hang out with these guys who just like had no shame, and they would just do whatever it takes. And I realized that it was so weird because everybody, including some of my mentors, were like this. And I started wondering, is something wrong with me? But I learned through a couple of years of just like discovering this, that good game to me is classy game. In other words, I presented myself in the best way possible. I was truthful to who I was. I did what I could to get her excited, to get the girl, to see if there's an attraction. I sought the truth of who I am and who she is and where the connection might be. And even if I didn't get her, I ran my game in a way that I found to be artistic, to be mindful, to be... When I look back at my videos or infields, or if I think about what happened last night, I'm like, you know what? I'm proud of myself. Like, there's a certain level of coolness that I feel like I was truthful to who I was. And if you don't know who you are, respect the process of the search. You're in the search of who you are. And you don't have to compromise like your biggest core values, whatever they may be. Loyalty, friendship, respecting the girl. You don't have to become this douchebag player to get the girl. I just think that a lot of the teachings around this is just like patently false, right? It's just like not true. Ultimately, you have to take even what I say out into what we call the field and really see the truth for yourself when you're out there. And in Chinese, we call it like jianghu, which is kind of like it's like a river that flows through China. But basically what jianghu means is like you go out there into the real world and you see for yourself what human nature is really like and where you fit in that whole picture. And that is the ultimate way that you're going to learn where your principles are, how you want to become, what kind of guy you want to become, and how you want to go about your dating strategy. And you want to go about it in a way that I think that makes you feel good, that makes other people respect you, and that if you were to leave a legacy, it would be like, I did it my way. I was learning, I was still doing some things different, I made some mistakes, but overall, the path that I traveled, I made some big mistakes even for me, but ultimately I found my way and I learned my principles. And once you have your principles, like Ray Dalio says, you will know in different situations how you want to handle it in the future because your principles are well defined for how you want to navigate life. That is one of the ways to have a great life and to have a life that like you feel good about. I did it in a way that was like, I felt good to who I really was as a person. Okay? Those are my insights from last night. I wanted to share them with you today before I forget, so that's the video. Hope you got a lot out of it. And I'd love to hear your comments about any of my insights. If you agree with them, if you disagree with them, check it out below. Like, subscribe to my channel. It will help me make more videos for you in the future. And you may want to check out this video right here that's going to continue help you improving your social skills.